Autobots, transform and roll out!
Mike! 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 So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike!
Well, hey there, folks. Welcome back to the second episode of Two Mikes, Too Furious. It's 2 episodes too furious, I guess. My name is Mike Seibert, and joining me is the other titular Mike, Mikel Andrews. Thanks for being my buddy.
Yeah, no problem. You know, along with that, are we coming off furious enough? I feel like we're not living up to the. Are we supposed to be like more angry, more fired up? We're really in a good mood. We really enjoy talking to each other. Maybe we need to put on some angry hats.
Yeah. Put on some angry eyebrows.
Yeah.
So real briefly, I didn't think we were going to talk about this too early, but very briefly, the story of why this show is called Two Mikes, Too Furious is one, there's 2 Mikes. One of us goes by Mike. The other one is Mikel Andrews, but more or less, I'm not great at naming stuff. And it was a gag that came out from an episode of Autopod Decepticast, another Transformers recap show. They started off doing the 1986 Transformers the movie and have now since moved into the G1 series recaps, and they're hip deep in season 3 by now. So check out their show. They are friends of ours, and this is kind of like a weird spiritual spin-off of their show. We wanted to do something different. We're fans of theirs, we're friends of theirs, but they said something on one of their episodes several years ago, like, man, there's just too many mics.
That's right.
and that's where it all came from. And then you had said something on Twitter, something to the effect of like, you know what, me and Mike Seibert should just start our own podcast. And you know,
I was channeling my Bender from Futurama of like, in fact, let's start our own podcast.
And then that, so you know, and we made a bunch of jokes, and I said something about hashtag 2 Mikes Too Furious, because that's my thing. That is always my go-to of dumb titles, because Too Fast, Too Furious is probably like the most ridiculously awesome movie title in the history
but
of
yeah,
ever.
I also love it. Let's be clear about that.
Oh yeah, no, and it's an underrated movie too. It's like in that franchise, in that series, give it another look. Tyrese is terrific in that movie. You get some good Paul Walker, and it's not weighed down by the incredible weight of Vin Diesel. It's a fun little movie, actually. Give it another go. But anyway, like, so for some reason that was always rattling in my head, you know, this 2 Mikes Too Furious thing. So that was like in like, I don't know, what was it, June, July of 2019 or something like that, coming on like 4 years now. It's like, this has been a long gestating project. And then basically COVID happened, and then lockdowns happened, and I had this, I was in a creative funk and wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something collaboratively with somebody I could work with in a remote space. And for all of the reasons that was 2020, 2021 and 2022, it just didn't quite get off the ground. But it was always something in the back of our minds, of something we did indeed want to do, to the point where I almost felt like Kevin Smith for a second, like, oh yeah, I'm working on this project, 2 Mikes Too Furious. We're going to sit down and watch Transformers animated, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be great. And then just like years passed, and I just, and I will own here now for folks that are maybe joining us for the first time, completely my fault. Just like in terms of like not getting my shit together in terms of logistics and scheduling, and just not taking my own advice, the advice that I've shared on my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio. I always ask my guests, well, what's the advice that you want to give to folks wanting to do their own artistic pursuits? And like 11 out of 10 times that advice is just do it, just start. And as anybody that knows anything about me, you've heard me talk about that I'm great at giving advice and sharing advice, just not taking the advice. So
It's a
anyway, so
problem for
I
all of us.
exactly, and I just couldn't get my rear into gear, but
Well,
but
Mike, to be fair, I think, when you put in the
to be
context of
fair,
Okay, now to be fair.
To be fair.
To be
to be fair, I think when you put in the context of, oh my gosh, it took you guys 4 years to do this. To be fair, they were 4 COVID years, and that's like the blink of an eye to some people. I mean, that was a real blurry, weird time for time passing. So
yeah,
I think we get a little. I think you get a little bit of a pass there. I think we both do. So
absolutely,
and we're here now. We're doing it. Let's move forward.
Absolutely. So, welcome for episode number 2. This we're going to pick up right where we left off. Basically, in our first episode, we just kind of like laid some of the track, laid the groundwork, foundational stuff for Transformers Animated. Oh, I want to remind folks that I have never watched Transformers Animated before, so this is my first run through of these episodes, and that's the gimmick of our show, is that I haven't seen the episode, so I will be talking about them kind of as a newborn baby to these ideas and concepts. Whereas my buddy Mikel Andrews is very much a super fan of TFA and has really been eager to revisit. So if you want to watch along with us as we recap these episodes, I'm watching on Tubi TV, that free app. Mikel Andrews has the DVDs, so we'll talk about as we go through each individual episode. Not so much today, but where there might be differences and incongruities. Like, for example, transform and roll out the pilot exclamation point. Sorry, transform and roll out exclamation point. The pilot for Transformers Animated is episodes 1 through 3 on Tubi, whereas as it was originally presented as a standalone movie that was later put out on DVD and is completely separate from the first season of Transformers Animated. So when we get beyond this pilot, we're going to get into some numbering legislation. It's like, well, are we talking about episode 1 or are we talking about episode 4? So,
Right.
So look forward to some of that confusion.
Look forward to numbering legislation, folks. If there's not something that's going to make you tune back in, it's numbering legislation.
So in our first episode, we just kind of met the characters and kind of discussed the overall concept of TFA, and I talked about why I passed on it initially. Like, the design aesthetic wasn't necessarily for me, but all of my friends have told me, with like my tastes, that TFA is something that I would really enjoy, and I'm really digging it so far. So I'm excited to continue that discussion and analysis. So Mikel Andrews, why don't you kind of reset us? And because like I felt like we spent over an hour talking about the first 10 minutes of
I was gonna say, I meant to make a little more traction with that first episode, but it to be fair, that'll be the name of this episode. There is a lot world building, story building set up for the entire series in those first 10 minutes, and I think it's not just an info dump, it's just a really incredible writing choice to get that all out there in that first 10 minutes. And I wanted to do it proper justice. But yeah, you're right. We do kind of need to start moving forward in this breakdown of the show. So just to get you up to speed from some of the stuff we talked about last time, we've established that the Autobot team that we're working with is Optimus, Ratchet, Prowl, Bumblebee, and Bulkhead. And they're a bunch of space grunts. They're a bunch of space bridge team that's out there doing repairs and rooting through old technology, ripping out the rebar, if you will, space wise. So we get to meet all of them. We get to meet a little bit of a crew of Decepticons that have been doing some infighting for a very long time. And one thing that's important to know about this show that's different than other shows is that the Decepticons have been out of the picture, seemingly extinct for a very long time.
Millions of years.
The war is over. No one even, a lot of people don't even believe they ever existed. Not just whether or not they're still around is not even in question. But the thing that kind of brings it all back, the catalyst, is that this space bridge team finds the Allspark, and the Allspark, which was originally established in the live action movie, is sort of like this holy relic. It's almost a little bit like a Vector Sigma type device, and it's been lost for several years. It was the way they ended the war. I called it a shooting the hostage situation, where they just chucked it into space so that Megatron wouldn't have anything to fight over anymore. And now it's been recovered, and the Decepticons are back, and they know of its existence. And we see Starscream. This is something we talked about, was one of Mike's favorite moments, is Starscream gets to be the Starscream we've always wanted to see. He puts together a plan to take out Megatron, and it works. He plants an explosive device on Megatron, blows him up, and Megatron's head lands on Earth in a cornfield. Along with this, Optimus and his team end up on Earth. They make a crash landing, which puts their ship and bodies into a stasis mode for 50 years. And in those 50 years, a sort of cyber utopia has sort of built up in Detroit, of all places, where a young boy turned scientist, Isaac Sumdac, has sort of reverse engineered the technology from Megatron to build sort of a utopia of technology in Detroit. This is kind of a twist on what we see in the 2007 live action movie, where they sort of said, Megatron being found in the Arctic sort of is a reason why we have a lot of the technology we have today, microwaves and all that stuff. This we're seeing is sort of put Detroit on the map as like the city of the future. We don't think it's indicative of the rest of the world, but this one bright spot of America has become great, and it's Detroit.
It's very localized, and I'm sure there will be reasons for this that'll become apparent as we go. But I do think setting it in Detroit is very interesting, because traditionally Transformers has been kind of set in the vague Pacific Northwest, Mount St. Hilary, which screams to me like Oregon, Washington, Idaho, that kind of, there's trees, there's mountains, there's water.
It's got water and it's got water.
So making it specifically Detroit, I'm not sure exactly what they're getting at yet, but I feel like the show creators have something in mind with that specificity there.
So the other important thing to know is now we've met Isaac Sumdac. We find out he has a daughter, Sari Sumdac. She has been growing up around robots her whole life, the ones that her dad invented, but she's not really great around people her age. She's just a little bit different. They don't seem to like her. I think Sari's very cool. I don't really know what the case is, but apparently she's just not likable by the rest of her class, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Okay, so along with that, we should also now we're getting caught up to the point in the story where one of Isaac Sumdac's inventions, the nanobot technology, has infected a cockroach. The cockroach grows into this giant monster, and I think this is like really sort of anime trope-esque. This reminds me of like Bubblegum Crisis or something, and you also have sort of like the Toku, like Godzilla sort of like monster attacking the city sort of thing. It's really cool after we've seen all this sort of technology, and now it's just a big cockroach attacking the city. Mm-hmm. But ultimately it draws the Autobots out of their slumber down in Lake Erie, and they come up to the surface. They need to scan some robot modes, and because some vehicle modes, and because the whole city's emergency services have rallied to the cause of fighting this roach, this is where we get the vehicle modes for the Autobots. And the vehicle modes are a fire truck for Optimus, an ambulance for Ratchet. We know this a little bit. Mm-hmm. Bulkhead, we sort of have a new character here, so it's kind of interesting to see him as like an armored SWAT vehicle. And then you have a police motorcycle for Prowl. Mm-hmm. And then I think this is really smart of how they got Bumblebee into it, is they have this sort of cantankerous Andy Sipowicz sort of NYPD Blue detective, Captain Fanzone. And he drives around in like a rusty yellow compact car with a little siren that he pops on top. And I guess technically that's an emergency response vehicle, and Bumblebee likes the look of it, so he scans it. And that's how we get our Bumblebee for this story. And that's how the Autobots are introduced to the city.
Awesome. So there was a couple things I wanted to loop back around to, kind of pull on some of that taffy a little bit. First of all, one of the things that all of my friends have told me, and I think you've told me as well, it's like, you're a fan of that Transformers, the movie, that 1986 movie. There's Easter eggs for you. And right off the bat, like right out, as soon as we establish the landscape of Detroit and it's populated by all of these helpful robots that do all kinds of menial tasks. And this is all in voiceover from Isaac Sumdac, talking about the world of Detroit the way that it is. And they show the robots doing especially menial tasks like cleaning up the streets and scrubbing toilets. And I think like really trying to establish that there's a underclass of robots here that I am sure is going to play out some way as the show goes. Mikel Andrews, you've talked a lot about like secret foreshadowing, and I get the feeling this is like not so secret foreshadowing. I mean, like, I know there's specific emphasis when you see a robot specifically scrubbing toilets. It's like, that's there for a reason, just to show the menialist of tasks that these robots are doing. But these robots are coexisting with humans, and it's not even a blink and you miss it, because it holds on long enough so that you don't miss it. But you see what could be interpreted as Spike Witwicky and his wife Carly and their son Daniel, and they are wearing their 2005 spacesuits, and it's awesome. And it's like, oh, they put that in there for me.
Right.
And that's and I forget who it was, Sands of Time, but it was like, well, Spike and Carly and Daniel show up, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and it's like hidden ways almost. I mean, it's not just like, I mean, obviously you saw it and there it was, but it's not like they're characters in the show. Like there's all these like really hidden, the true meaning of Easter egg, not just like a throwback nostalgia, but just like a little artistic nod to certain things, which are very cool.
Yeah, I get the feeling if that was in a show made today, those characters would have dialogue, and you would get like a name drop. Stay close to me, Daniel. Oh, well, you better stay close to me.
And there'd be a lot of like nudging and winking, and they'd cut to like the producer being like, that's him.
Exactly. So I thought that was pretty cool. But in our last episode, we kind of talked about the trope of Transformers being in stasis to propel the storyline to get to present day. This time they've done something different, because what I took away from it is that it's not to get the Transformers to present day, but to get them to the future. I feel like, and I don't know if it's said later on what year this ends up being, but my weird headcanon that I've developed on my first viewing is that the Autobots emerge from the space bridge in present day, and then they go into stasis, and now it's 50 years later. So now we're in the far-flung future.
Oh, so maybe like 2057 is maybe,
I think so.
Kind of what you're feeling?
Yeah, that's my takeaway. And again, I don't know if there's evidence to say otherwise, but
there probably is. We're not going to look it up right now.
Okay. Yeah, it just feels that way. It just feels like it's the future. Or I guess, now that I'm noodling it through and saying it out loud, that Isaac Sumdac's technology is so advanced that the future of Detroit is as if it were 2057, but it's only 2007 or something
right.
like that.
Yeah, that could be too. And I think also, while we're talking about this, it's a very cool, weird, funny vision of the future, right? Because there's this sort of like 80s would be on the nose, but there's also like a 70s vibe too. There's just like a lot of like rhinestone jumpsuits and like the tinted glasses. It seems like everyone just came from a disco. I guess I'm maybe saying this from a person that's seen the whole show and seen more side characters, but I don't know if you kind of gleaned that, Mike, if you kind of got that vibe from it.
There's a little bit of that, because like we see the school kids on the field drip at
Yeah.
Sumdac Industries, and yeah, everybody's dressed weird. Even Sari's dress is kind of weird. The fashion is weird. So
Yeah.
in a sense, the stuff that the Witwickies are wearing doesn't seem out of place. So
Right.
I wonder if they kind of took that inspiration and worked backwards. Took like
Everybody
these
should have bell bottoms.
exactly, yeah, because yeah, it has like, I mean, like for me, it almost felt like a Jetsons style future, where it's like vintage stylized, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh,
So
totally.
and so while we've discussed Derek J. Wyatt's art direction and design aesthetic, and that it's not necessarily my cup of tea, I think the stuff that does win me over is in the other design elements, the backgrounds, the lesser robots, the fashion, the vehicles, even like when we get to it later, like the first responders, the police, the fire department, the firefighters looked especially cool.
Yeah.
Those were some really cool looking firefighters, to the point where I almost want action figures of them. I was like, no, those it's a really cool design.
Yeah.
So while the design of the robots doesn't necessarily resonate with me at this point, as we're recording, it's still very cool and very distinctive visually. It looks really neat. But I wanted to talk more about the introduction of Sari and the introduction of adult Isaac Sumdac, and kind of the world that we're in, because like when we first meet Sari, she's, as you already said, it looks like she's apart from the kids. She doesn't know how to deal with kids, and a lot of it is because she's hyperactive and rambunctious, and dare I say, a little obnoxious. I would say at this point, for my early viewing, deliberately so. I think she's supposed to be kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Which is kind of okay, because as rowdy as she is and as so in your face, I don't find her off-putting. I'm not like, oh, get this kid out of here. Get this wheelie sounding motherfucker out of here. It's like, no, I don't have a low opinion of Sari at this point, but I also like how she interacts with people. Like, this one shit boy is all like, well, hey man, what's it like living with robots your entire life? And without missing a beat, she's a quick wit, and like without a beat, she's like, I don't know, what's it like to go to school with other kids?
So, what's it like to grow up around all these cool robots? I don't know. What's it like to go to school with other kids?
I apologize once again for the interruption,
Hey,
but my daughter must
oh.
return to her studies now.
And one of the things that we're going to talk about a lot in this podcast is like little bits of world building that it's like a glance, a line, but it means so much. That one statement, what's it like to go to school with other kids, says so much about her character and lays so much foundation without having to have like a huge exposition dump. It's very very interesting. So, and you mentioned the bug creature that develops from these nanobots, these nanomites. I'm not used to seeing icky, sticky creatures in Transformers, and it's an upsetting design. This sluggy thing looks gross. This mutated cockroach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like a water bear tardigrade, like there's something very grotesque about it that they really leaned into. And I guess that's something we really kind of haven't talked about, but it should be pretty clear that this is a hand-drawn show. This isn't like CGI. This isn't like sort of having to create a character model and stick to it sort of with, virtual puppetry. This is just a cool mutating gross, specks of it fly off and rejoin. Like this is weird and cool.
And very wet.
And very wet and sticky.
It's a wet creature. The dialogue in this show is terrific, and it's just like, so Isaac Sumdac is trying to play it off. Oh, well, it's just happy accidents, and sometimes that it leads to innovation.
Nothing to be concerned about, children. These happy accidents are often what lead to discovery.
Mr. Sumdac, this accident doesn't look too happy.
Makes me wonder that what's the backstory with this dude, because we know a little bit about how he reverse engineers Megatron's components, his head specifically, to develop his robots. But I get the feeling this is not the first time he's unleashed a scourge on the city. It just because he seems very nonplussed about it. But I love this line from the kid where it's just like, this accident doesn't look very happy, and it's just whip smart dialogue that's growing on me that I like quite a lot.
One thing we have is now we have the established vehicles. I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Because we established in the last episode that your favorite character off the bat was
Ratchet.
Ratchet, correct. And your least favorite was Prowl.
Yes.
Now seeing them with their vehicle modes, do you have a favorite vehicle mode? Is that changing? Or is something coming alive inside of you that it didn't before now that you see them in their vehicle modes?
I don't know if I feel any different. Like I do like that Prowl's design is more tied together, because like when we see Captain Fanzone come in and he's got like a motorcycle cop near him. Like when they think they've destroyed the thing, there's a specific motorcycle cop that's amongst the crowd that's cheering, and that looks almost like Prowl's design. Like if Prowl was doing like a hollow former, human former type of thing, it would look like that guy.
Yeah.
So
well, spoiler alert.
Oh man.
Just for you, we've all seen it.
Sometimes I stumble on these things by mistake.
Yeah. It's been really fun so far, because all the questions you've asked and all the things that you've kind of alluded to or things that you think are foreshadowing, I can safely say are foreshadowing. Like these things, they do come back to these things. So these questions that you're having now are going to get answered, which is very cool. So that means they're doing a good job with the start of this show.
But yeah, I love Prowl's aesthetic post Earth mode scan. The thing that I like about the tying theme, and I don't know if we've seen this from an Autobot team before, I love that they're all first responder vehicles, like together. Like, we've had ambulance Ratchet. I mean, that's kind of like his default. Prowl has been a cop car. He's now a highway patrol motorcycle. That's rad. Bulkhead is a SWAT vehicle, like you had already said. And Optimus Prime, taking a cue from Robots in Disguise 2001. I love the concept of Optimus Prime as a fire truck. Like that, like I don't have a huge amount of nostalgia or affection for RID 2001, but like the one thing that like I remember off-put a lot of fans my age at that time, it's like, what is this Optimus Prime as a fire truck bullshit? Get that out of here. I was like the one guy where I'm like, no, that's rad.
Yeah.
That seems super cool, that Optimus Prime, basically, who is kind of like a superhero type figure, keeping in mind this was 2001. So 9/11 was still very much in the forefronts of our consciousness, and the hero worship of firefighters and first responders was and still police. Very much. Yeah, absolutely. And so to see Optimus Prime, the leader of the Autobots, be a fire truck was a no-brainer for me. That always made sense. So I love that we've come back to that here, and I love the team unity that they're all first responders. That's something really, really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I really like Bulkhead's vehicle mode, the armored SWAT vehicle. One thing I wanted to bring up that's kind of interesting about his design is that his robot mode has tank treads. And those are left over. I'll have to maybe dig into this a little deeper, but that's either left over from like an earlier concept version of Bulkhead that didn't get used, or from like his Cybertronian mode. But yeah, the tank treads stay on him throughout the series, but his vehicle doesn't have tank treads. I always thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting. That now I'm gonna have to look for that when I watch the next episode.
Yeah, yeah.
So we meet Captain Fanzone, and I love your characterization of him. Very, very much Dennis
Yeah.
Franz, Andy Sipowicz,
Yeah.
very, very much a put upon cop of that era. But you also establish that he has this axe to grind, this bias against robots, mechanics, It's kind of weirdly ill-defined because like I may have written my note down incorrectly, because I wrote down Fanzone hates robots, but he's yelling at a giant bug. And
Right.
but then later on he says something to the effect like this is why I hate machines. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
well, wait a sec. So I can get I hate robots. Maybe it's like an Eddie Valiant thing, like, oh, Toon killed my brother or something like that.
Yeah.
Robot killed my brother or something like that. But like machines and robots are two different things. So does he hate the coffee machine? Is he so grouchy because he has to hand grind his beans and then like strain it through the hot water?
Yeah.
And he like starts a campfire to get the coffee pot boiling so it percolates and all that stuff. Because I mean, hand washes his own dishes. Can't have a dishwasher.
Right.
That's a machine.
But he also hates that because it's work. I think it's more accurate to say he just hates everything. Like maybe it's not just machines. Maybe it's just I don't like this. He's very Ratchet like in that sense.
He kind of is. He is a grouch. Speaking of Easter eggs, I love that Sari's robot dog is named Sparkplug.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. You
Nice
get a
little nod.
lot of name drops. Yeah, all these weird callbacks. That Teletran 1 is their operating system for their spaceship. You get to see the old Sky Spy. And even then, like the mechanism that they use to scan. Like the rectangle around the vehicle. All of this G1 stuff. I really liked. But of the G1 homages that really resonated with me more so than anything, and it's you'll discover as you get to know me, like the littlest things have the biggest impact. Like I go disproportionately nuts for like stupid small things. But when
It's true.
when Optimus says transform and roll out,
Autobots, transform and roll out!
I'm just like, we're home. It's Chewie, we're home.
Yeah.
and it just like, I mean, over the years there's been this perspective by Hasbro to move away from using transform as a verb. Basically
Right.
to I think the explanation that I've heard is that if you use transform as a verb, then it weakens the brand. So any shape-changing robot is by default then a transformer because it's transforming the verb.
Right.
Or at least that was some of the explanation. Maybe in a future
That's
episode
interesting.
we'll but I think because of that, we've seen that classic call to action less and less. In fact, I recall specifically in the 2007 live action movie, for all of like Peter Cullen's terrific dialogue and line delivery, that was something that was missing. And I remember being a little sore, a little salty about it coming out of the theater, because it's a lot of like, Autobots, let's roll. There's a lot of like roll out and, let's go. But it's never the phrase Autobots, transform and roll out, !
Right.
And I think that call to action is specifically iconic, and it's transportative and nostalgic for folks of a certain age. So to hear that line used here in an episode called Transform and Roll Out! It's like, hey, that's the title of the episode. He
Yeah.
said the thing. So that meant the world to me. And I even like that it's established that Optimus does a bit of speechifying, and that, you know, even this crew is kind of tired of it, kind of like a lot of eye rolling, here we go again. But you can see that while Optimus is not the leader of the Autobots, he's the leader of these Autobots, and they do rally to him. They do understand at least his drive and his leadership.
Yeah, it's so funny to when I was thinking about this show, I was thinking about like it'd be really cool to have sort of a drinking game-esque every time we see an Easter egg, but it's kind of hard to define what an Easter egg is in this show. I mean, is the fact that like the leader's named Optimus, is that like an Easter egg, or is that just a character name? You know, I would think like an Easter egg would be more like a visual cue, but then I think of something, you know, an Easter egg like mentioning that the Decepticons, you know, they kind of own the power of flight. I think that's kind of a cool throwback to the original thing. So, but yeah, it's been kind of tricky, but I think it's all there. I think it's, maybe we don't need to make that rigid of a breakdown of like what that is. So that's how I'm going to move forward.
Yeah, totally. So when the Autobots reveal themselves, you get this of the era 2000 and late anime sequence where they're shown, like, you know, you got the speed lines and the bright colors.
Yeah.
And I like that. I appreciate your enthusiasm for it. I liked it because I thought it was kind of fun, because I do like that type of thing. But I hope that this isn't a thing that we do a lot of, because, well, let me tell you. So like I noped right the hell out of the Unicron trilogy stuff, like Armada, Energon, Cybertron, and it had a lot of that. And I don't like it. I mean, it's like, I mean, I'll just be straight up. It's not my favorite trope. It's kind of like, it's a thing that calls back more to a younger era. Like, you know, I would see this a lot in like Pokemon or something like that, especially when coupled with the presentation of superpowers. Like, I mean, that was the thing that I found so off-putting in like Armada and stuff. It'd be like, you know, Optimus Prime super mode, and, you know, just like, you know, Power Link and all that other stuff. I don't care for that a lot, and I feel like it's, especially in a lot of those episodes, it feels like filler. Now, here in this specific instance, it does feel like there's a specific reason for it. You know, it's like, you know, they're revealing themselves, and it's, you know, it's coming out of Earth mode, their newly scanned Earth mode, alt modes, and going into robot mode, or back and forth, or whichever it is. Either way, it's fine here. But I'm going to plant a flag right now. I hope I don't see a whole lot of this.
Sure. Well, there's a couple of things at play here, but I guess to alleviate concern a little bit, I think it gets gradually less that we see that. I think this was an important time to establish it, because it's the first time they're transforming. Like, let's get that animation out of the way. But yeah, I think we're gonna speed things up a little bit throughout the show. But I also want to remind you that, you know, unlike the Unicron trilogy, which was actually an anime, this is a show that's sort of like, you know, playing homage to animes, where this show shares DNA with a show called Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go that you probably never heard of, and also with Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go.
Yeah.
And both of those styles are built around like sort of like the American version of anime a little bit, or like trying to be like anime without being anime, and borrowing some of those tropes and almost like winking at them a little bit. So I think, it's not necessarily filler, but I think they are trying to go for that aesthetic and style of like, this is sort of, you know, a style choice to be more like an anime.
Yeah.
We are going to get a little of that. But I think it also, this transformation sequence also lended to I kind of alluded to in the previous episode that I didn't think they could do like toys for this show. I just thought this was going to be a cartoon that either didn't have toys or the toys were going to look nothing like the things, because their transformation sequence is almost like Tom and Jerry fighting, like the mouse and cat scrabble in old cartoons, where it's just like and then it's something, or like in Charlie Brown when they make the nicer Christmas tree out of the shitty Christmas tree, right? It's just like a puff of smoke and then you have the thing. So that transformation sequence, I was like, oh neat, never gonna be a toy from it, but there are, and they're impressive.
Well, and also to underscore the transformation, it's like, unlike outside of the Speedline anime sequence, again, there's a lot of like that Tasmanian devil spinning shortcuts type of thing, but I that was something that was off-putting to me at the time, gave me the shits and put me off from the show. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. This isn't for me. But now though, I'm like, it's fine, because it's economical. It's just, I don't need to see an intricate transformation every time, because you get a lot of transformation here. I love it. It's in the name. Transformers should be using their alt modes for transportation, for combat, for tactical advantage. And any time that Transformers forgets that, it just kind of becomes Star Trek sci-fi. It's sci-fi with robot characters, but it's like I think the more brilliant pieces of Transformers media are the ones that can figure out how to do a lot of transforming and creative transformations. And if the trade-off for that is that the animation is in a faster style, that's fine. But the point I was going to end on with this Speedline sequence is that, unlike the others, it is pretty intricate. You could see parts folding in and out, and puzzle building and things like that. So that's true. Maybe I was a little extreme when I'm like, it's just like a cat and mouse scrapping. I mean, you do actually see parts moving and stuff like that, but I still didn't think they were going to be able to mimic that in toy form. So it was still impressive to me. So this giant bug thing has now started to like take human hostages. And this is kind of like one of our, we're still getting to know Sari, and like, she's screaming her face off. And, but I love this little bit of character bit where like she's in actual peril, but then she sees the Autobots and then just stops screaming, and this wry smile creeps across her face. She's like, so cool. Which leads to this terrific sequence with Bumblebee, where he basically rescues her, and they have this terrific dialogue. Again, the writing and the dialogue in the show, I'm already in love with it. I get why people like this, but like, it's like the Transformers don't know what humans are, the humans don't know what Transformers are, but they have this instant connection. And it's like, what's your name? I'm sorry. Well, don't be. I love my name.
I'm Bumblebee.
I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be. I like my name.
No, I mean, my name is... What are you?
That is such a cool line.
Yeah, that's nice.
Why is Prowl such a dick?
So that he can be not a dick later, I think, is the answer.
He cuts off Bulkhead's hand, though. He's like, so the Transformers are trying to combat this thing. Bulkhead is shown to have like these I don't know, wrecking ball hands, and he shoots the wrecking ball hand at the creature, and it gets like absorbed, and he's stuck. He's like, I don't know what to do. I don't think Bulkhead is the sharpest knife in the drawer. But what is the sharpest knife in the drawer is these wicked shurikens that Brad has, and it's just he's constantly not listening to Optimus. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, well, hey man, we need to coordinate attacks. He's and Prowl's always like, fuck that. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
my own thing.
Well,
And
that moment is so crazy because it's the most. It shows Prowl exactly who he is. Like, you can't be any more anti-teamwork than cutting off the hand of your teammate and then bragging about it. Like, you just save the day with that moment. And I believe this is where we see him, or at least it's soon after, where that move causes him to be like absorbed by the singularity here, this cockroach singularity, if we want to call it that. You know, and then that kind of takes him out of the game. We don't know if he's dead or alive. There is sort of an assumption that he's dead, and so maybe that's your nice moment of seeing his dickheadedness kind of turn into he gets his comeuppance, I guess.
Quote from my notes: "Good!" exclamation point. Fuck that guy. Prowl is a dick. I literally wrote that.
Yep. I'm glad you got that. That's a nice moment for you.
You also get, like, you know, it's interesting. We talked so much about Easter eggs, but not only do you get like Transformers Easter eggs, but you get like pop culture Easter eggs too. Did you catch when like Bumblebee makes the jump to the creature to implant the antivirus thing? It's just the $6 million man sound effect. It's just
yeah. And sometimes I wonder if that's just like old school people that are working on the show, just having a little fun and just calling back a little nostalgia to their. Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't think they ever assumed that people watching that show would get that, or like young kids would be like, "Oh, that's a $6 million man reference."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good sign of a you know, we've used terms like, you know, timeless, you know, like timeless shows, and it's like those are the ones that are rewarding, to where sure they can be for kids, quote unquote, but adults can get them, and then even like those kids can come back to it after they've experienced the world some. So, you know, somebody who watched, you know, TFA when they were 7 probably have a different view of the world when they're 37 and go back and watch it and say, oh, hey, the $6 million man sound effect. You know,
right.
That's kind of a neat little Easter egg there.
Yeah.
Well,
that moment where Bumblebee saves Sorry, that ultimately kind of like cements their bond, that relationship between Bumblebee and a human. That's kind of maybe that's a drink moment, an Easter egg, right? Like the bond between Bumblebee and the humans is stronger. But that mutual curiosity between each other gets her a ticket on board the Ark. And so he has to keep it secret from the rest of the crew, but he brings her on board, and that's how she gets onto the ship.
Yeah. And another moment of, you know, the Transformers not knowing anything about humans, though. But I do like the cocksure confidence of Bumblebee, though, where he's like, so Sorry asks him as they descend into the water. It's like, oh yeah, hey, can I breathe in here? Yeah, sure. Wait, what's breathe?
Am I gonna be able to breathe down there?
Oh, sure. Let's breathe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're the perfect combo, right? Because like they both want to push the you know, they're both just so curious, they're living for that moment, but neither one of them are really sure. Like Bumblebee doesn't know like if she will ever die, and Sorry conversely doesn't really care. Like she's just like, let's do this thing. We'll think about that stuff. They're both Han Solo, right? Like they're both just like, we'll figure it out later.
Oh man, speaking of Han Solo, he straight up throws her down the garbage chute.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I mean, that's the same thing. But I like that sequence where you know, Bumblebee is trying to hide Sorry, and it's awkward and it's funny, but it's interesting because like Optimus says something like, well, you know, just transform into robot mode. And I don't know if I've seen a dialogue scene like that before, where the what is the default mode for a Transformer? Is it their vehicle mode? Is it their robot mode? Right. It seems like it's uncommon for them to interact in vehicle mode, to where maybe it's more comfortable for them to be in robot form.
Yeah. Well, if we since this show itself throws out to other forms of Transformers lore, I guess I want to take a minute to acknowledge More Than Meets the Eye, the comic series that became Lost Light. They kind of established a little bit that your mode, like your default mode, I guess, is whatever you've kind of spent more time in. And at the end of your life as a Transformer, when you die, you revert to that mode. Whatever mode you spent the most time in is what your like final resting form will be. I think that's kind of a cool thing that's always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's sort of a metaphor for like, you know, what type of person were you? You finally find out in death who you really were. I've always loved that.
Yeah, that's a neat concept, and like, you know, the whole concept of like rigor mortis and that kind of thing. Very interesting. So, you know, so Sorry then communes with the Allspark, and you get like, and I'm sure this is going to be a whole lot of like future foreshadowing and stuff, but you can tell that there's some kind of imprinting both ways. Like the Allspark has imprinted on her, but also the human has imprinted on the Allspark. As well.
And I think she even says, "Did we just have a conversation?"
Yeah,
like So they really wanted to make clear that it was a two-way street there.
So her security key card gets transformed into this totem. This I guess we'll just call it the key, because that's what it seems like, and that's how it gets used. You know, she uses it to save Prowl. She uses it to reactivate Bumblebee later, and then huge spoiler, she uses it to revive Optimus Prime. So
this is interesting because I've always maybe I'm going to get some hate mail, if hate mail is still a thing, about this, but I've always kind of thought this felt like a little bit of a nod to like KISS players, like that kind of weird, like we don't really talk about it part of Transformers lore. That's sort of key, and that's sort of like her kiss that kind of brings the Transformers to life. I don't know. It's not exactly the same, but I've always kind of wondered if maybe that wasn't a nod to that.
Interesting. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me, because maybe that's a way to touch on something, because we've already established that TFA kind of looks at Transformers as like a buffet. You know, it's like takes a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and certainly in episodes yet to come, you know, we'll see a whole lot of that. I'm talking like I've seen this yet. But I mean, there's things that I know that I can't unknow for this project, like, you know, certain characters and voice actors and things like that. But anyway, I think that could be something where it's like, here's a way we could acknowledge this super obscure thing without really acknowledging it, but also kind of acknowledging it. I don't think you're that far off.
Totally. And you know, something that's more important about the key thing, and that Sorry in general, is just that it maybe even more so than other series sort of establishes why this human element is important. Like, for better or worse, this artifact has imprinted upon a human, and now, you know, you're kind of stuck with her. She has an ability that you don't have, that you're going to need. It gives Sorry a reason to stick around and have to be part of the Autobots' lives from here on out.
Yep.
I think that's important. I think that's one of the things that people, when they hate on the human element of Transformers, it's because there's just no real purpose for them to be there. This is establishing that.
There is one little bit of progressivism that I wanted to call out here that I actually really liked. So like that at one point, I think it's an Optimus, but like somebody refers to Sorry as an it, and she's like, I'm not an it, I'm a she.
Yeah.
And in 2007, the landscape was a little different in terms of, like, you know, preferred pronouns and whatnot. But I like that pays off later when they see what Sorry can do. And I think it's Bulkhead, but it says, can all she's do that?
Yeah. That's such a cool little...
I thought that was a cool line. And again, that's what I'm really digging about this show so far, is like, there are so many callbacks that just bounce back and forth like that. It's like they set up the, well, no, I'm a she. Can all she's do that? Like that immediate payoff type of thing. We see that a couple different ways with her crying. It's like where, she uses, oh, you sprung a leak. It's like, no, this is something I do to get what I want. But then it pays off in a big bad way after Optimus takes the pass. He's super dead and she's crying and Bulkhead's like, I don't think that's going to work this time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just little ways.
It's so
like,
smart. Yeah. Actually calling back to what you've established and keeping track of it as like a cohesive storyline is something that's sort of unique to this series, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Just immediate payoffs and to say nothing about the future foreshadowing. I really liked the gag when they decide to return to the surface and again, reveal themselves to now this growing force, headed by Captain Fanzone and Isaac Sumdac. I don't know what they were thinking they were going to do, whether they were going to go into the water, which incidentally, right. I do like one. I like that the Autobots have an undersea base. Because that's kind of like flipping the trope on its ear. It's usually the Decepticons that have an undersea base, but it's hilarious that it's just a ramp. You just drive up and down.
Yeah.
No big deal.
You guys get how this works, right?
Yeah, there's just a ramp right off the dock that goes to the bottom of Lake Erie. Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sari's back. They're back on the surface. Sari's being returned to her father. There's an award ceremony. This part of the story arc here, this episode 2 or whatever we're calling it, is sort of a weird episode, right? Like it's kind of just like Autobots fighting a monster, like kaiju style. Yep. But it is important for now. It does establish a lot of things. We introduce Autobots to the world. We get Sari where she needs to be, interacting with the Autobots. And I think the big takeaway from episode 2 comes at like the stinger, the last minute, when you see that Starscream has survived and sets his sights on Earth. I think it's interesting too, that now that we start moving into this third part of the arc, the episode 3, like there's more breathing room between episode 2 and 3 than there was between episode 1 and 2. Like episode 1 and 2 just kind of like flowed right into each other. Like now it's a battle time. This is a little bit more of a pause now, but it's kind of that moment of like, oh right, the Decepticons. We've been fighting this cockroach for so long. There's still Decepticons out there.
Yeah, you still gotta let them know that they're out there. Yeah. And it reminds me of that. There's this ongoing thread of Optimus doubting his own heroism, because like I don't know if this was intentional. I mean, it was intentional because they invoke it in the next chunk of the episode, but like these are basically superheroes. It's like, the Transformers are revealed as a superhero team, as if they were like the Avengers or the Justice League. I mean, they're robots in disguise no more. They are Detroit's superheroes. But there's this undercurrent of Prime doubting that, and that goes back to that dialogue that we see one with Sentinel, who is just a jerk to Optimus right off the bat.
Optimus Prime? You mean they still let you command other Autobots?
Don't start, Sentinel. Just put me through to Ultra Magnus.
Now how could a third-rate rockbuster possibly merit the Autobot Supreme Commander's attention?
Display cargo hold visual.
I'll put you through right away.
But then even then, and there's history there, but then even when he's patched through to Ultra Magnus, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but I want to spit it out now while it's top of my mind. I love that the voice acting choice is to sound like Robert Stack. That just really warmed my heart, because we've heard a few different iterations of Ultra Magnus. So to have him sound like a Robert Stack sound-alike, I thought that was really nice. But it seems like it's like a cool bit of dialogue, like Magnus is on Prime's side. You know, it tells him to stay put and wait for backup. But then he spits right in his eye and he says, "Hey, Prime, don't try to be a hero. It's not in your programming." And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What did this guy do?
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's like, they really kick a lot of shit in Prime's eye.
And Prime, don't try to be a hero. It's not in your programming.
But where I was going with that is like, there's this thing where they're being heralded by the humans, and Prime's like, well, wow, this is what this like. Hey, Ratchet, this is pretty freaking cool. Is that what this was like back in the day? And somber, grouchy Ratchet, he's like, yeah, the Decepticons didn't leave us much to cheer about.
And to think Ultra Magnus told me not to be a hero. Is this what it was like in your day?
The Decepticons didn't leave us very much to cheer about.
And then
such a great line.
Oh, so good. I mean, just like gets right underneath the skin. So we see Starscream on this ship being by himself, all by myself. Where are the other Decepticons? Because it's because that was one little bit that was a little confusing to me too, because like the what it wasn't Megatron exploding. No, it was when the Allspark activates the space bridge for the ship to escape. So Starscream's cruiser gets impacted by that blast, and even at that point, he's already by himself. So it's like, I'm already left with that question of like, where did the other Decepticons go? Do they know that Megatron is presumed dead? It almost felt like there was like a missing scene there where, Black Arachnia, Lugnut, and Blisswing are like, oh, Megatron's gone. Let's get the hell out of here.
Right. I mean, I guess I'm not 100% on that myself. I can definitely see Starscream coming back and being like, did it, killed him, easy. Like there's not a chance in hell that he didn't brag about the fact that, he ended Megatron. So,
well, and he does. It's like, so after he sees that his device has worked, he's like, okay, somber mood. And then he's given this, Tom Kenny's voice delivery. I mean, again, this is quickly becoming my favorite Starscream, where he's just like, oh yeah, and as we mourn the loss of our mighty dear Megatron, and then he's like, I have nominated myself as the new leader, and he's where'd everybody go?
This is a dark day in Decepticon history. May the legacy of our fallen leader Megatron live in our memory cores for all eternity. As I appoint myself new leader, I solemnly pledge to... Where's everybody gone?
Right. It's such a good, like, it's so classic Starscream and classic Transformers trope, and yet new and kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on it, but it's the same and different at the same time.
But I love that, that's kind of left as a cliffhanger. So as I was watching it on Tubi, that's where episode 2 ends, is with Starscream saying like, oh, the Allspark will be mine. And so then the next chunk of it just picks up, and we're just living on Earth. It's just slice of life on Earth stuff. You got Bulkhead stuck in traffic. And this guy, he's like, hey, I'd get there faster if I was walking.
Right.
And I prefer the trope of robots in disguise. And I mean, I also like that that's not what we're doing here, that they're just out. It creates different storytelling possibilities, but I also like the idea of the Transformers trying to stay in disguise, because like there's a little bit of that, because like sure. you get Bulkhead transforming and walking instead of sitting in traffic, but then you also have Ratchet trying to take a nap, so presumably he's kind of in disguise in ambulance mode. He picked the wrong spot, picked a no parking zone.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that scene's important for a couple of reasons. But one thing I wanted to touch on was like there does seem to be sort of this unspoken rule, at least unspoken for now, that it's great you guys are here, but you can't disrupt our everyday lives. You can't just be popping up in Central Park. You can't be disrupting our infrastructure. So that's kind of a unique catalyst for their robots in disguise. Yes, we know you alien robots exist, but you're going to need to conform a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and I think we're going to see more of that budding conflict as we go. It's a terrific sight gag with all of the tickets on Ratchet, and like the one motorcycle cop that looks eerily like Prowl rolls up and slaps that last one, and that's the last straw. But how much time has passed?
Right. That's what I was gonna say. It's also important because it's either it shows time has passed, but then I was thinking about like, well, is this just like a dick cop that's been coming around every 20 minutes to put another ticket on him? Or has he been parked there for several days now?
Right. Yeah, it could be either.
Well, I was wondering a little bit of like, why would a cop give an ambulance a ticket? I was just like, that seems like outside of their, I don't know, jurisdiction.
Yeah, exactly. I think, well, oh no. Okay, we're going to get super provocative and political here. So we know Prowl's a dick, right?
Right.
And he takes on the form of a motorcycle cop or a police motorcycle, highway patrol. And we see an actual motorcycle policeman being a dick. All cops are dicks.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that's the implication there. Like an A cab all the way.
It's true. That means it's a very ahead of its time show. It knew ahead of time.
It was ahead of its time, exactly.
Before the rest of us.
But the whole Ratchet thing does bring up a interesting question. And again, I don't know if it's just for the sight gag, but in TFA, how do Transformers recharge? Because like he says something about like a recharge nap or something like that. He says nap, but I think he also says something like recharge or something. So it's like, is Energon a concept, or it's like, how do these things recharge? Because like later on when they get to like their new headquarters, this abandoned office space, Bulkhead is shown to be tired. It's like, he's running low on juice. So it's kind of that same thing. And he says something about sleeping, I think, like he wants a nap or something like that. So, or like, I need to recharge or something like that. So it very early on, it kind of establishes that maybe these Transformers are a little different than what we see traditionally with like, using Energon cubes or, drinking and or eating Energon as recharging or fuel or powering up.
Yeah. Well, it's actually one of my favorite distinctions coming through in the Transformer world is like, they're not super advanced computers. They're not even as advanced as the computers we have on Earth. They are a robotic organism that evolves in a certain way. And they're going to need to recharge. They are going to have these kind of human traits because they're not necessarily like a self-repairing, self-diagnostic, computer system, right? They don't have like this onboard, like, Tony Stark-esque technology to like repair and replace and everything. They're still an organism at the end of the day. They just happen to be made of metal and energon instead of blood and bones and skin.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I really like that about this show. Another series that I've taken that, namely Transformers Prime, is another one that really kind of hones in on that theme.
Yeah, and how it defines mechanical life. You know, that these,
Right.
while they are not organisms, they are living beings, but again, life not in the way that we know it, but
Yeah.
it's but yeah,
Well, there's a great line in Transformers Prime where it says they're working on building a motorcycle for a school project, and Jack says to RC, like, well, you're a motorcycle, can't you build this part? And RC says, you know, you're a human, can you build a lower intestine? Like, that's a great way to kind of make the difference between, like, what are these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to say nothing about the legislation of whether they are the vehicles or are just mimicking them.
Right.
We'll leave that for the comments.
Yeah, right.
Let the comments section fight it out.
But it's also a great transition to kind of keep this going, in that Optimus and Sari have this great little moment where they're talking about organics, and Optimus gets like a birds and bees lesson from Sari about how big organics make smaller organics, and that's one of my favorite moments too in this.
Yeah.
Is like she like leans in and whispers, and he's like, duh, and he does like the eyes get big take of hearing about it.
Well, not only do his eyes get big, but they like shudder a little bit, like he is shook,
right.
like upset.
Yeah. and I love that it's a, you know, in other older versions of this cartoon, it would be like the little kid asking that question and then an adult telling him. And now we have like a little kid that maybe you would even expect doesn't know about this stuff. And she's like, yeah, I'll tell you, this is how it works.
Yeah.
Like, she's no dummy.
Right. So from there, you know, what is it? The presentation of like this new high-speed train monorail type of thing. You've got like an aerial display, and then that's where Starscream decides to make his entrance, and this kicks off a whole chain of really cool sequences. I love this chunk of the episode because I'm always a sucker for aerial combat with Starscream taking on human jets. That's like one of my favorite shots in the 2007 movie, is where he's like literally like in robot mode, like jumping on the planes and then jumping off, flipping into robot mode and shooting down another one and then flipping back. It's very kinetic. I didn't get enough of that here in this sequence. It's really more robot mode than anything, but it was still pretty cool and pretty fun. But I like that, you know, it's like you get Isaac Sumdac, who's like, wait a sec, that's they're what, like the Crimson Angels or something like that, and it's well, but there's 6 of them. I thought there was 5 earlier. See, and that's where you get into like robots in disguise stuff. Again, Starscream scans a jet and he's like, let's do this a little more incognito, but all the fights are great. You know, the Prowl Starscream fight is really good.
Yeah.
The Optimus fight is really good. And one of the, you know, it's funny, you know, one of the every version of Optimus Prime seems to action figure wise, sorry, the toy of Optimus Prime, whether it's Masterpiece or Mainline or whatever, always seems to come with that dumb Energon axe that he used in one scene in one episode. And it's like, but the thing that I like about I don't know if there was anything before TFA here, but establishing an axe as a melee weapon for Optimus Prime and just having that be part of him is really cool. And, you know, because we talked a lot about when we were talking about Earthspark, you know, his use of the axe for tactical advantage. And you see a lot of that here. He gets a lot of play about like that extendable handle, uses it as a pole vault. His axe is a versatile weapon, but it's first and foremost a tool. When we're introduced to the axe, it's as a tool for you know, space bridge repair and breaking down rocks and things like that. So I like that there's that blue collarness to Optimus, because for me, Optimus Prime should be like a blue collar dude. You know, he's like a dude that is, you know, burdened with the responsibility of leadership and is imbued with, you know, great power and all that. But at the end of the day, underneath all that, he's just a dude. Right. And again, that's why I really like this iteration of Optimus, where, you know, he's outmatched. I mean, obviously he was outmatched fighting Megatron, but he's pretty well outmatched against Starscream here also.
Right. We're not just seeing like an OP, if you will. He's scrapping with the rest of them. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really good. I've wrote down melee weapons and circled it about 15 times now, so maybe it's a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I just really love about this show is like, not even just melee weapons, but weapons that aren't guns or blasters. Like they all kind of have their own thing. We're sort of seeing like these, you know, Bulkhead with his wrecking balls and even the stingers that Bumblebee has. That's not like a true like laser gun, you know. So we're all seeing that they sort of have this. And I will say a little bit of foreshadowing. There's one of my favorite episodes of all time in this whole show is called Auto Boot Camp. And you sort of see this, why this is important, like why each Transformer kind of has their own thing and how it goes to play in their society. So that's something that's going to come back around, which I think is really cool. But I also just like it because it's different than just like, give them a blaster, you know, like we're kind of waiting to see what your thing is.
Yeah. Well, future foreshadowing, I'm really excited to talk about that further, because like one of my favorite things from the G1 cast, like the 84-85 cast, is that it had an emphasis on superpowers in addition to, you know, in addition to, you know, the ability to transform. You know, it'd be like, you know, Skywarp's teleportation powers, Hound's holograms, Mirage's disappearing act, Trailbreaker's force field. And we're already seeing a bit of that here with Ratchet's magnet powers and magnet weapons.
Yeah.
Prowl's decoys, Bumblebee's stingers, which again, a lot of this stuff kind of goes back to tools. Like I don't know how Prowl's decoy is a tool, but certainly Ratchet's magnetic abilities are, and Bumblebee's stingers certainly are, because that's how we see them first used in that first part of that first episode. It's like I think that's super rad.
Yeah. While I say that about their melee weapons, this is kind of the transition in the show where we kind of see what I'm calling Starscream's null rays, right? Like he is, you know, he brings out the big actual guns. So I guess it's not just all handheld stuff. There is some blaster heavy weaponry going on.
But it's the bad guy. It's the bad guy using them though.
Yeah, they're allowed to cheat, right?
See, and that's and there's emphasis on that because nobody else has like handheld blasters or handheld guns, or I bet you that's a specific choice, because it makes sense that Starscream has guns and null rays and all that, and that, you know, he again, top tier Starscream here. It's like, you know, he's threatening humans, he's threatening the other Autobots, and this sequence here gets into a trope that I will never not point out. No matter what the iteration is, Optimus Prime always wants to be a martyr, and he welcomes the opportunity to die in battle or sacrifice himself for his friends. Yeah. He's got a death wish. He really needs to talk to somebody, because across all media, Optimus Prime is a little too eager to die, it would seem, because he says something. He's like, oh, well, you know, I'm ready to sacrifice my life for, you know, the Allspark and for these squishy humans and for my friends. And it's, while it's noble, it seems like he goes there a little too fast for my taste. Right. I think it's kind of funny.
Bring me the Allspark, Autobot scum!
My name is Optimus Prime, and I'm prepared to sacrifice my life to defend the Allspark.
But are you willing to sacrifice theirs?
Yeah.
And he
Oh,
gets
for
his
sure.
wish very shortly. So-
Right.
But yeah, and Ratchet has a really good line here too, because again, we're hammering on this theme of heroism and Optimus Prime as a doubtful hero. Ratchet says, heroes are the ones who make hard choices. And so, you're getting a lot of wisdom from Ratchet, and you get this kinetic action scene, which is again just French kiss, chef's kiss, so good, where like Starscream and Optimus are fighting over the Allspark, and then something that oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. So okay, well, I'll just spit it out first, and I'll loop back around to why it's embarrassing.
Sure.
The Allspark opens. And it opens and it does something to Starscream. Like if you look at the animation, he gets real pale, and he you see cracks, and he disappears. And then Optimus, on the other hand, falls from a great distance and has a very poignant death. And he turns gray like he does in the movie. And even when he's hanging on the side of the building held by his axe, seeing the detail in there, it's like, oh, that's a level of detail that's supposed to be in a movie, because like, in the 84, 85 cartoon, they didn't really show that extent of damage. Everybody stayed pretty much on model. But like when you get to Transformers the movie and you see the toll that his battle with Megatron has taken on Optimus, and likewise with Megatron as well, but like to see that like right away to where you could see that he's messed up. I thought that was I thought that was a really nice touch. Again, I thought they did that just for me, and especially
well, they did. So weird. Yeah, I have it here in my notes. That was just for Mike Seibert. It says right on TF Wiki. That's so strange.
But the thing I wanted to talk about before we get too much deeper into the Optimus death thing and the end of the episode is I remember when I was a kid and I saw Transformers the movie, and not when at the end of the movie, when Hot Rod has the touch, he's got the power, and he opens the matrix of leadership, and there's like finger holes in there for him to stick his hands in. I'm like, oh my god, it was finger holes. It was there the whole time.
Right. Did no one make this connection?
Exactly. And I felt like a 7-year-old ding-a-ling. And I felt like a ding-dong here because the Allspark has handles on it.
Right.
It's like, so, and it didn't even occur to me that this thing would open. It's like, because like in my virgin viewing of TFA, I don't know if the Matrix is a thing. I don't know if there are other totems, because like I mean it gets really ropey in other iterations, like in that Netflix war for Cybertron, you have both the Allspark and the Matrix, and it gets really, it makes it to where neither one is really special if you have both of them, but that's just me. But anyway, like it didn't even occur to me that even with the design of the Allspark case looks like the Matrix. It's like it's orange, it's got off-white silver handles. It looks like a larger, more portable version of the Matrix, and it didn't even occur to me that thing could open. So when it does, I found myself I was like, whoa. I mean, it was like a genuine action. I was like, wow. And then to see a portion of its power unleashed, and even then I got a little ahead of myself. I don't understand what Starscream's plan is. It's like, is it just destruction? Because like he's using the power of the Matrix to just like destroy Detroit, and it's weird for as clever and as brilliant as he is in playing the long game. This feels very short-sighted. Like I get that. Is it one of those things where it's like, we've seen this with Megatron with the Autobot Matrix. It's like, I want it. Well, shit, what do I do with it? You know,
Yeah, I
once
think it's a little bit of what Mission Impossible 2 calls getting your gun off.
Yeah.
Like, I think he just like grabs it and he's like, oh yeah, let's just take this for a spin for a minute. And this planet's nothing to him, right? What is it? A bunch of organics and the Autobots? Like, yeah, let's do some damage.
Yeah.
We're going to test it anywhere. Why not here? I also want to say too that Allspark itself, this might be a really niche reference, but the Allspark in this show reminds me of, do you remember a sitcom called Out of This World about a girl who was half alien? It's like from the like 80s.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, she talks into like this crystal thing. And it always, I don't know, maybe I was the only one in the entire world that watched this show, but the Allspark from Transformers Animated looks like kind of reminds me of the crystal thing that she talks into.
You all right, honey?
Dad, I just tried one of the cookies Mom baked for the party.
How were they?
Oh, it tasted like someone took a ball of dough and rolled it across the gymnasium floor and into a locker room and under a horse.
Yep. That's your mother's cookies, all right. Too bad she doesn't have any Zebulon Crunchies.
What are they?
Peanut butter cookies from the planet Zebulon, made by a guy named Amos. Uh-oh! Somebody at the door. Be right back.
Maybe we can post a picture of it or something and see how many people on Twitter disagree with me. I'm sure no one on Twitter disagrees with anyone, so I don't have anything to worry about.
Of course. I do love, and I've talked about this so many times already, but I will say it again. I love this iteration of Starscream, and I just love how impatient he gets with the Autobots. Like he is just like had enough of their shit.
I have had enough of toying with you puny Autobots! At last, the Allspark is mine.
And he comes across as menacing and scary, which is kind of new and different for Starscream. You know, it's like, you know, he's usually like a bumbling fool, you know, like a kind of like the sniveling conniver, but never really capable. And I love seeing Starscream as a legitimate threat with genuine menace.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool kind of. For again, it's one of those situations where it's the same and different. This is a very different Starscream than we've seen, but there's so many nods to the original Starscream. It's really striking a nice balance between old and new.
So Prime dies, as he always does.
And we get the grayed out version of him.
Yep. Yeah,
So
and again,
nice.
the detail, you know, just it's terrific. So you get that callback I mentioned earlier of Sorry Crying, and it's like, nope, I don't think that's gonna work this time.
I'm afraid his wounds are fatal.
And so this is kind of like a weird thing too. So Sorry uses the Allspark key to revive Optimus Prime, kind of in the same way that she used it to wake up Bumblebee and to repair Ratchet. It makes me wonder what the limitations are, to where, I mean, like Optimus is super dead. He's like actually dead.
Yeah.
But I do like though where he when he's revived, he's like, so hey, is this it? Is this the well of all sparks? And it's like,
right.
No, it's just Detroit.
Is this the well of all sparks?
No, it's Detroit.
Hey, I thought you only did that leaking thing when you're sad.
You guys have so much to learn about humans.
Yeah, right. And it's a little bit of funny, but it's also that Optimus of like, I've finally gone to the other, like the sort of self-sacrificing. Like it's kind of a nice play on that Optimus that kind of always wants to die for the cause. Like, nope, you're still here, bud.
And like we touched on earlier, you know, Prowl learns a lesson. You know, he's just like, oh, wow, he sacrificed everything
Right. That's what real heroism is, not what you've been doing, which is, showing off basically.
And you get, I get jumping around all over the place here, but like, you get some really good, genuine teamwork as they're fighting against Starscream. There was a couple things that I missed earlier that I want to touch back on real quick before we close out, because we're almost done with the episode. But like, I want to go back to Captain Fanzone. He says like this thing about like, I hate machines, like as he's being rescued by Prowl and Bumblebee. And there's this line right before they go to rescue the humans off the train. It's like, well, hey, so what do we do? Catch it on the first bounce?
Right.
like that's dark.
Yeah.
That is surprisingly dark. But one of the things that I skipped over, it's just a dumb thing, but like, so Starscream has given the Autobots a ultimatum. It's just like, okay, well, you got like, 1 mega cycle or whatever the measurement of time is. But like the whole time he's just flying around this tower. I don't know if you noticed it or not during your most recent viewing, but he's just constantly just flying in a circle. It's like, and going very fast also. It's like, you getting dizzy up there? Because like it was just this weird looped bit of animation where it's just as the Autobots are planning and talking about like their coordinated attacks, Starscream is just zipping around this tower like top speed.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I do like the idea that he's just, if it were slower, if he were just like up there just like being spooky. But yeah, I don't know if maybe they just were like, we only got a couple minutes left, make him whip around it really quick.
I am remembering that, right? He is going at a pretty good clip there, right?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah.
So the humans are saved, evil is defeated, but the thing this cemented for me that this is going to be a show for me, because I mean, again, I've laid all this groundwork. I've said all this already about like how everything pays off. Nothing is wasted, even for stuff I don't even know what the references are yet, the future foreshadowing. But the thing that I thought was the goddamn coolest is, so it's the narration from the news reporter. It's like, oh, hey, so the Autobots are here to stay and they're here to help. And, the city is being repaired. And it's the scene of Bumblebee, and I think it's Bulkhead. But he says something like, hey, we're back to fixing bridges right where we started.
As Detroit recovers from this devastating clash of the Titans, the Autobots prove themselves even greater heroes than first imagined, not only saving the city and perhaps the world from the Decepticon menace, but repairing damaged structures and damaged lives with their reassuring presence.
Fixing bridges? Isn't this where we started out?
Yeah. And I just thought that was, again, nothing's wasted. So they started off as a space bridge repair crew, and now they're in their new home in future Detroit, back to fixing bridges. And I just again, like that little stuff means a lot to me. And I just really
Well, I think it's important because it's, it's sort of establishing like these writers know where they're going with this. This isn't just like, we got to sell some toys kind of a thing. Like they do have a larger story in mind and they do know where it's going. We can trust them now. We can trust that they are going to build upon the foundation that they're laying here.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of a nice breath of fresh air coming out of a cartoon series.
Very much so. I mean, everything feels deliberate and nothing feels wasted. I get why people like this, and I am excited to go on the journey.
Yeah. Well, and let's before we close out of it, let's talk about the stinger where we see Isaac Sumdac in his lab watching news coverage, lamenting the truth of my robotics empire, but really we see Megatron's head and the the sort of like Terminator-esque exposed eye. Like that's so cool. And it's like, oh, because I think we're talking about it now with a sense of knowledge about what's to come, but we've when watching it the first time, it's sort of implying like maybe he just got the idea for robots because he saw that head in the cornfield, but now we know for sure he like reverse engineered and Megatron is still around in some form. This isn't just like a piece of scrapped junk. Like this is all Cybertronian technology now, and Megatron in some form is still alive.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And I'm sure, again, forward foreshadowing, I don't think he's going to be very happy once he finds himself released from bondage. I don't know how that happens. So and again, just, as a weird reset. So now at this point, I have seen Transform and Roll Out ! And we did jump ahead and I watched the Halloween episode 9 or
right.
at least, yeah. So, but that's all I've seen. It's like, so there are some things that I know through kind of like cultural osmosis. Like I know that the climactic battle between Megatron and Optimus Prime is kind of like the sort of climax of the series. I know that there's more to Sorry Sumdak than meets the eye. But I don't know exactly what, and I don't have the context for it. So, so I'll be interested.
There's so much more coming. That's something that's been fun, kind of just talking about this project of, there was moments where I was like, oh, I've seen this a billion times. But now that I'm back into it, like, I'm like, oh, there's so much more. There's so many episodes I'm looking forward to seeing again. Like, this is going to be really, really fun for me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure, like, not leading the witness, but I'm sure some of your pleasure is going to be watching me squirm on like some of this stuff that like, stuff that I don't. And I'm not going to look ahead. I'm going to, try to stay off the TF wiki and all of that. And, try to keep my reactions as pure as possible. So like for my workflow, what I'll do is I sit down and watch the episode just once straight through and just let it wash over me. Then I watch it again with a more critical eye, maybe take some notes. And then the third time through, if I have time, I'll just sit there and just hastily scribble stuff out and then, and then come to the table, ready to talk. So that's been in my workflow. So, but
I love that. And I think it's important to establish at this point that, if you're looking for a show that's going to just regurgitate TF wiki and, just sort of give you like a commentary track to watch the stuff, that's not exactly what we're doing here. We're kind of looking at it with a fresh eye in your case and a refresh eye for me, and just looking at some of the bigger picture, kind of, giving it sort of like a book report or giving it like a little bit of an analysis of the whole. And I think that's what's going to be kind of nice and refreshing about this particular show.
Absolutely. And just for my own amusement, I do have the TF wiki up for Transform and Roll Out. Well, and it is so exhaustive and comprehensive that, I mean, because like it's talking about, the trivia, continuity errors, animation glitches, callbacks, references, and it's just too exhaustive. So, even if we wanted to, even if I wanted to, that's not how we're going to run the show. And I hope this style of analysis is appealing to folks, because that's what it's going to be. It's like, sure, we'll make jokes and references, but I'm not particularly funny. I mean, my friends think I'm funny, but yeah, it's not necessarily like a comedy forward show. It's just kind of like a nostalgia analysis type of show.
Well, I'm pretty funny, so it's going to be a little comedy forward. Let's be honest.
This is true.
But yeah, I think that's a great way to take it. And but along with that, you should definitely feel free to reach out to us, reach out to the show and tell us those things we missed, or if you know a little bit of an Easter egg that we looked over. We want to know about it. We don't want to read paragraph and paragraph on the TF wiki about what we're watching, but we're open to some commentary on it for sure.
Well, yeah, and so let's talk about that a little bit as we transition into hopes and dreams for the show, and then kind of put a button on this this adventure. One of the things that Mikel Andrews told me back when we were brainstorming this episode, this podcast in its infancy, was that he wanted something with a lean towards audience participation. it's like, we're great buds. We love chatting but we also want to include our friends and include the community, the Transformers fandom. So there's a handful of ways that you'll be able to interact with us. All of this will be at the end of the episode, but like information about social media, we'll have separate Two Mikes Too Furious accounts for you to interact with. We're also going to have a voicemail set up to where you could just beep boop call and leave feedback about the episodes or really anything that you'd like us to play on the air. We will play your voicemails on the air, give you shout outs, read your emails, read your tweets, so you can interact with us that way. Also, we I think at this point already have friends that they're calling shots for episodes they would like to be a part of. So if there are specific episodes of Transformers Animated that you would like to join us to talk about specifically, hit us up on those socials and communication platforms and let us know, and we'll figure out the logistics and scheduling and get that squared away. Also, as a treat for later on, maybe like mid-season, maybe end of season, we're not exactly sure yet, but we're going to be doing some live streams as well with a larger group of friends, kind of talking about Transformers Animated as a larger, rowdier group, very similar to the Transformers Earthspark episode of Mike Seibert Radio that you can find on my channels. But basically, I feel like I'm talking about you as if you're not here, because I was going to say, well, Mikel Andrews said he kind of wanted like the friends coffee shop type of aesthetic.
Yeah.
But
can
yeah,
you unmute me, Mike, so I can continue talking on this?
Yeah.
No, but you're exactly right. I definitely wanted it to be something where we can reach out to other people, and we have this great little group of friends that we can call on for some roundtable action. And I think for getting into our hopes and dreams a little bit for the show, that's one thing I really hope to happen here. Like, one thing I need this to reinvigorate my love of Transformers. Like, it's just kind of been a weird time in my life, and I've distanced myself a little bit from Transformers, but I want to jump back in. I want to feel excited about Transformers again, and I'm hoping this is the way to do it. But along with that, I also want to meet some other people in the fandom. I follow all these accounts, and I follow along with quote unquote Transformers influencers. I want to meet some of them. I want to meet some like-minded fans, and I'm hoping I get to talk to them, get some new friends out of this deal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and for me, like in terms of like, hopes and dreams for this podcast, I'm looking to connect with perhaps a larger audience or a different audience. Like, the stuff I've been doing with my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio, is, I do a lot of interviews with independent artists. I also do a lot of like movie reviews. It's a very eclectic pastiche of a podcast. It's not really any one thing other than, pop culture bend to it. Sometimes it's me talking about toys, sometimes it's me talking about movies, other times it's stuff like this style of back and forth conversations is what I live for. I mean, it's like I like talking with an audience, but I love talking with my friends, and so
totally.
I'm just looking to do more of that. So that's and for me creatively to have a focus, because Mike Seibert Radio is many things to many people, but one thing it is not is focused. And that's the charm and appeal of it, is that, I could just do whatever the hell I want. But this, it's going to be fun for me creatively to have something with a narrow specific focus. And, I think I'm really excited about that. So before I turn it back to Mikel Andrews to talk about the cool stuff that he's working on, I talked about myself a little bit. I talked about, my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio, which you can listen to everywhere you're listening to Two Mikes Too Furious and on all of your favorite podcast apps. But speaking of having all kinds of other projects, and I promised before we started recording, I wasn't going to make you do this in every single episode we do, but Mikel Andrews, you are an author, you have a series of books, you got all kinds of cool stuff going down. So for folks that are joining us here for the first time, maybe talk about some of the other projects you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a bit of an author. I have a few books out there, notably Coming of Mage and the sequel, A War for the Mages. My most recent book is called Gone for a Spell. It's not connected to the mage verse, if you will. It's kind of a standalone thing for now. So yeah, and I'm working on a book. I'm always working on another book, so we'll see what comes next. But that's kind of my claim to fame, if anything. I'm just mostly just a huge Transformers fan, and I love talking about it. I love doing talking, as Rose from Last Jedi would say. So yeah, I'm just here to rumble, Transformers wise.
Very cool. And if folks wanted to find your stuff on the internets and connect with you on the social medias, how would they do so?
Yeah, pretty much everywhere, but I'm especially active on Twitter at Mikel Andrews, and Michael is spelled Mikel. Nice and weird. So.
Which is how we like it. And
Yeah.
you can get the Coming of Mage saga out on the Amazons along with Gone for a Spell. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely. Check out Amazon. Search my name, search the title, search for something, you'll come across it. Or just look for my links. I link it everywhere.
I'm still a little sore that you didn't call A War for the Mages Too Mage Too Furious. I mean, it was right there.
Oh, geez. Well, I knew we were saving that for this project. So how could I steal that glorious title from this?
Oh my God, they were kind of percolating at the same time, weren't they?
That's right.
That's so funny.
I was like,
That
damn
is
it,
so
if Mike
funny.
Seibert ever does something with this, I don't want to have the same title for my book.
and by all the chuckling you can hear, we are not furious at all. But
right. We're kind of furious, and not hopefully, but maybe we'll be furious later. Maybe that name will come to fruition. Who knows? You might be listening to the end of our friendship.
Yeah.
Who knows where it could go?
Well, I think for now that will wrap things up for this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and for giving us a shot. And again, keep listening for all of the Two Mikes, Too Furious, Two social medias, or no, that doesn't work. But no, just listen at the end of the episode for all of our contact info, and please keep in touch. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. And thanks for being my friend. And until next time, make good choices.
And another catchphrase to be inserted here.
It'll come to you. It'll happen. It'll come to you.
Want to be a guest on the show? Send us an email, 2mikes2furious@gmail.com. Interact with us on social media. You can follow 2mikes2furious on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 2mikes2furious. And raise your voice. Leave us a voicemail message at 260-274-MIKE. Again, that's 260-274-6453.
You are Mike. You are Mike. You are Mike. 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 So many Mike. So many Mike. So many Mike. So many Mike. Hey! Mike!
Yeah, well, speaking of people that talk to us or used to talk to us.
Oh, okay.
I'm feeling a little salty, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, you remember we made like a light little joke at the fact that, so many mics.
You made something.
Well, put it back on me. I don't think I was the only one that said that, we were talking about how when you got people whose names sound similar and,
Yeah.
and how you don't
you
want
know
them
what?
around. And
I take responsibility for some of this. Yes, I remember
okay.
this now.
I'm totally blameless. And we suggested, jokingly that, one of the mics in our lives.
We've got a Mike Seibert and we've got a Mikel Andrews.
Yeah.
And we talk about how those guys, we get, it's confusing.
We got to dump one of them.
So one of our little comebacks that we thought was so witty was like, well, there's only room for one mic.
Mm-hmm.
To which they decided to say that they're going to just start their own podcast.
That's right. So we playfully suggested that maybe only one Mike in our lives. They've taken it, in my opinion, too far. And on Twitter, they're conspiring against us because they claim we don't have the hardware for it. They came up with several names, Two Mikes Too Furious, Two Mikes No Feedback, I'm sure a reference to our questionable quality of our audio. And you know what? I've had enough.
Okay.
I've had enough of this. And so I'm going to take the opportunity to lay down the law right now. Are you guys ready for this?
I don't know what's
This
going
is
to
a real.
happen.
This has been a real Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds back and forth we've got going with the mics here. It's a celebrity face-off.
I'm really not sure what's about to happen.
You're going to find out what's happened. Caleb, drop the beat.
What?
This is a shout out to all those podcasters and writers out there who think they can talk shit about the APDC. Here we go. From the darkest depths of Tarn comes the bomb sound the alarm. Cause real shit's going on, it's the APDC. Coming at ya, gonna catch ya, brain splat ya on the wind. Shield, no force field will protect you from the verbal laser cannon. The lyrical dragon, skills as big as wells as he swells into a horn planet. God damn it, I heard you said we took a trip to the burn ward. My God. Silly Seattleite and a bloated Minnesota thought they had the oats to wrap their coats around our throats. Well, that's not happening. Keep napping it, cause it's a dream to think to see the APD bloodstream. Coming of age, you'll see me coming with rage as I split your basilisk bits with the twist of my wrist. I'll take all your gems, I'll take all your M's, ma. I'll show you who's hard and I'll show you fucking where. Two Mikes, too furious with blood clots in your hair. I swear, Mike and Mike, more like Mike and Ike with your candy ass style and your artificial flavors. It's a favor to drown you out, no lifesavers. You signed the waivers, call the engravers. You think you can take us on? That's like Wheatley trying to bomb a whole squad of Septicons. Like Swerve getting stomped by the claws of Tripticon. Like Magnus getting courted by the suits on Junkie on. Must I go on? That's right, this goes out to all those podcasters pushing beef. Whether you at the lake house or the coffee shop, when you come, you better come correct, because it's a fucking mic drop.
Oh, it really falls apart at the end. I didn't get to practice the end as much.
That was good.
That was amazing.
That was a lot better than I thought it would be. I thought that was your lyrics were on point, dude. Coming of age, coming with rage.
That's right.
That's awesome.
I think my favorite line is skills as big as wells as he swells into a planet.
That's pretty good. I liked the part about taking M.
That was a nice little
for the three people in the room who could get the joke. Well, both Mikes will get it.